So here's what happens every time I get a phone into review. I open the box, I check the quality of the packaging, I check the quality of the contents, I check what is included in the contents. Then I turn the device on and I start migrating my data. So then it's a choice between wireless or wired, or restoring it from Google, or restoring it from whatever cloud service where all my data is backed up. This time it was Type-C to Type-C cable, which would have been a problem if I didn't have a Type-C to Type-C cable, because they don't even ship dongle in the box anymore. Now I'll start taking photos and videos. I'll take pictures of my kids. I'll take pictures of my dogs. I'll take the phone with me on a run with my dog so I can test out the video while I'm running after my dogs. I'll chase my son around the garden. I will get low shots, I'll get high shots, I'll get macro shots so I can test the minimum focus distance. I will use the portrait mode. I'll take lots of backlit portraits with the sun in the background, test all of the manufacturer claims. Then it's audio testing with cabled headphones and with Bluetooth headphones. First problem with the S20 Plus, no headphone jack. And then the USB Type-C to audio dongle that I use is not compatible with Samsung, so you have to use the AKG headset that ships in the box. And then I'll optimize everything and customize everything for my personal use so I can put it through the next 1.5 weeks of testing and bring you your review. So the Samsung S20 Plus sailed through all of those tests except 2. This is the first S-series Samsung phone that doesn't have a headphone jack. And as I said earlier, I figured this out with the Note 10 family that is a big problem for audiophile. There's also something weird going on with gaming and these Exynos devices, because Forza Street Mobile, which ironically launched next to this phone, the Forza guys were out there on the same stage where they launched this device. Sometimes you have to restart the entire phone to get things running properly because it's just like choppy city on everything. Football Manager 20 mobile as well doesn't kick out the right resolution sometimes, so you need a full restart or just an app restart. So the S20 is a definite refinement over the S10 from last year that it replaced with. Except there's a couple of weird quirks here. I've already mentioned the headphone jack, which is one of them. The other thing is the weird stuff that's happening with the power button. So remember with iPhone 10, when Apple took away the home key and then they brought in that swipey gesture from the bottom, and then they were like, how are people going to access Siri? We know, we'll just build Siri into the home button, which we'll now call the side key, and we'll make it really big. And then Samsung were like, hey, that's a great idea, can we do that with Bixby? But the average consumer, like me, we want the power key to always be a power key. So if your phone does something weird, like Forza Street stops working properly, and you can't get out of the app and you can't get to your home screen, you just want to hold that power key as long as possible and turn the phone off. But now you have to do a volume down plus the power key. So I immediately switched that off, and then that became a problem immediately later. Because the other weird thing about this phone is when I tried to summon Google Assistant using my voice, Google Assistant did not hear me. But I digress. Things I love. I love the slimmed down design. It's a little bit narrower. It's now gone to a 20:9 aspect ratio. Lining up the cameras on one edge is also something I like that they did on the Note 10, so that when you're going down for those really low angle shots, you're getting as close as possible without having to actually lay on the ground, which is a good improvement. But then they had to move the selfie camera front and center, which looks exactly like every other Galaxy phone they put out this year. Galaxy A51 and this phone, at first glance, they look like the same device. I believe that your flagship devices need to look a little bit different. They need to have something, some pizzazz, maybe look like a stovetop on the back. But that brings us to the cameras, and the cameras are good. Not great, but good. I love the new main sensor. It's a 12 megapixel 1.76 inch sensor. Unfortunately, it loses that variable aperture trick that they've been playing since the S9, so it's not that great in bright conditions. Samsung always overexposes. This time even goes up even to like 2 stops, so you just bring that exposure slider down a little bit, which is tricky sometimes because when you're swiping that down, it can swipe you between the modes on the camera app. Not great UI design there. So now it's a big sensor, and the aperture is now locked at f/1.8. This causes a little bit of a problem with the plane of focus because it is now razor thin. So I love it because once you get a feel for it, you can really get those really juicy creamy, bokeh balls in the background, natural without using any portrait modes. Samsung doesn't have a good track record when they change the lens and the sensor in the same year, but luckily, this is not the S20 Ultra where they brought in that nano-binning 108 megapixel monster and all of the autofocus gremlins that has plagued it. Colors are slightly juicier than Samsung's of recent memory. S10 had a nice little refined look to the colors. It was very natural. This goes back to usual Samsung colors where it's like the green is just turned up a little bit too high and the red is just like the reddest red you're ever going to see. But then there's some wonderful subtlety also hidden in there. So there's a little bit more grain than we're used to on Samsung's, and there's much less fringing. So like if you're taking a shot of power lines on a blue sky, you don't get like that white fringing around the power lines anymore. The highlights are a bit more restrained as well. So I like the general look of where it's going. Like there's less over sharpening. Well done, Samsung. I dig that. But then we get to the telephoto lens. So this is the 64 megapixel sensor with a 29mm focal length, which is not much different from the 26mm focal length of the main sensor. And even in the last software update, they give you full 4x3 access to the 64 megapixel sensor, and you'll notice it is very, very similar. So what are they doing to get that hybrid zoom? They're cropping in on that major sensor. That big sensor is also the way that you get 8K video. Didn't test 8K video because I don't have anything to edit it with. But don't let those telephoto lies overshadow the actual quality of the ultra-wide sensor. So it's a 12 megapixel 1.4 inch sensor, which is the same size as the main sensors of Samsung's past. And it's really, really good and useful in low light as well. Talking about low light, night mode, bit of a step backwards from what the S20 was doing in its processing. There's a bit more grain, there's a bit more weirdness going on there, splotchiness here and there. I'm not digging it so much, but just turn the night mode off, use it in its auto mode, let it meter for itself, and it works pretty well. Look, there's a lot to love here. But it's just a step behind what Apple are doing on the iPhone 11 and what Huawei did now with the P40 family. I love the fact that Samsung dove into that Apple bag of tricks, and now if you hold the shutter key in auto mode, it starts a video recording, which is absolutely awesome. All phones should be able to do that. Thank you, Samsung. This camera is good, but not great, like I said at the top. It's not the main selling point of this phone, but it can hang. It's definitely in the top 4 or top 3 even in some cases of phones on the market right now. So what are you spending your money on? You're spending your money on the Samsung software experience. Don't laugh, I'm being serious. Samsung have put in the hard yards to build out their ecosystem. It's not as good and as seamless as what Apple are doing on the iPhone, but they are there. They are the best in the Android side. Every single case manufacturer has a Samsung S20 case. Think about that. If you're buying this phone, you will never lack for accessory. And the latest revelations in the marriage between Microsoft and Samsung make it even better. Now you know that 1 terabyte of OneDrive storage that you have just laying there as part of your Microsoft 365 account, you can sync that with your Samsung Cloud account now and back up all of your pictures right there, storage that you already own, and you don't have to pay extra for it. The Microsoft Office apps also work better on Samsung, and like Lightroom is pretty much baked into this experience. There's actually a variant called Lightroom for Samsung, and that's why it's easy to recommend a Samsung S series device as a phone for anybody. You're getting good quality hardware, not the very best at any one thing, but together as an experience, it's incredible. And it's still one of the only phones that you can take, plug it in to a monitor, bring in a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, and use a full desktop operating experience that's very well thought out and improved over years. Like, forget the Samsung S20 Ultra. Save the 4,000 Rand. Get the S20 Plus. I'd actually even get the S20 standard one and lose out on the time of flight sensor, because I prefer the time of flight sensor on the front so you have secure face unlock. The ultrasonic fingerprint sensor is my favorite optical solution. It works flawlessly and it doesn't do that weird thing where it has to make that super bright light to read your fingerprint. Samsung make a compelling argument for a do-it-all phone with the S20 Plus. Like I said, it's not the best in any one category, but when you add it all together, there's very little that can beat this. If you are spending 20,000 Rand and you want the absolute best bang for your buck that you can do whatever you want with. This might be it, but that's just my opinion. I'm Lindsay. Come fight with me on social media. I'm Sharpshooters over there. The website is That Opinion Guy. Everything is linked down below. Cheers.